Greetings, everyone. This is Mark Edward Lewis, the post-production supervisor, the editor, colorizer, and a few other things for Star Trek Phase 2 Kitumba. And this is my happy commentary on all the incredible amount of work that the post-production team did in putting this episode together. As many of you know, this was shot several years before it was released on January 1st, 2014. And so, you know, some of the sets, if you look, are slightly different. There's a few minor changes. There's some paint missing on the walls here and there, but the same kind of quality that we've grown to love from James Cawley and the Phase 2 team is very, very present here. And it's been an honor for me and my team to be a part of this. And right here was the first shocker to me when I realized that Gil Gerard, the star from Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, there he is, right there on the right of frame. I couldn't believe it. I thought, wow, even Gil Gerard is involved with this. So we're going to be talking about a lot of things in relation to technical aspects of post, and I hope that doesn't bore you. Hopefully you'll get some insights as to the amount of talent that goes into post-production process, no less than what goes into the production process. But sometimes, and especially to me, the Hollywood magic happens in post. So in this scene, we've got Gil and our Star Trek crew, and even some more interesting people there, setting up the story. One of the interesting and difficult feats in post-production for us on this was that this was shot on more than one kind of camera. It was shot at a resolution that we call 2K, which is 2,048 lines one direction across the top by 1,152 lines down. And then on another camera, it was shot at 1080p, which many of you have on your HD televisions, which is 1920 lines across by 1080 down. And in the end, it's historically, Phase 2 projects have been released at 720p. So what I opted to do was blow the whole thing up and make it all 2K, which is fine. I mean, it's what we do a lot of times. It helps us when we do a lot of rendering and processing and color correction and things like that. But the problem is that all of the incredible work, like even there, the transporter shot that came in, that was done by Pony Horton, and there he is, Pony Horton, as Cassia in this episode, but also Tobias Richter and many of the other effect shots were done at the smaller 720p resolution. So what it meant is that when we blew it up, it was incredibly grainy, and by grainy I mean just, you know, look like snow all over the picture, almost useless, really. And we really had a huge problem with that. Add to that, there were some lighting issues where some of the shots were incredibly underexposed. A couple of shots by 8 stops, which is basically the difference in a room of one candle versus a candle in a room versus a very well lit room. And whenever you bring up, you know, color or light, and in a digital medium like this, you bring up all the grain that comes up with it. So it's the same kind of thing. Imagine if you're listening to an old cassette recording and it's very, very faint. The audio is very faint. Well, when you turn up the volume, you get all the noise that comes with it. Well, that's exactly the same thing in video. So we were very fortunate in that we found this plug-in that we were able to use to erase almost all the noise, including in shots like this, these beautiful shots by Tobias Richter, where his shots were again done at 720, and we were able to blow them up and remove the noise. Shots like this, if you look at the ceiling and the walls with Kelly and even their yellow jerseys, it was like snow, and we were able to completely strip that out. It took me about 2 days of just fooling around, but we got it, and it's absolutely beautiful. If you have the opportunity to watch it at 1080p on YouTube or at any other venue, I strongly suggest you do. It's just absolutely staggering. And there's our buddy Gil going at it again. There is a shot coming up here where, that's the shot right there, where Pony is actually in a shadow, his face. And we were able to take his face, not just the entire shot, which was ill-exposed, but blow it up and with light, add light to it in post. And because we had this grain plugin, we were able to take that out take the grain out. It was really amazing. And then just generally color-wise, just for those of you who are in the color, about every shot we added, a few stops of color to it, a lot more red. So we added a lot of what we like to call the Technicolor effect, where everything is just maybe a little too colorful here and there, like it was in the 60s when the original series was running. Audio is, in my mind, as a post-production supervisor and a composer, really the most important aspect of any film. It's the immersive portion. If you have bad audio or bad sound design or bad dialogue, or even, of course, bad music, it's very difficult to stay emotionally in the film. And in this case, thanks to Ralph Miller and some really good what we call EQing and compression and noise reduction in the audio realm, a lot of this audio that wasn't recorded very well in a very noisy stage was saved. And you can hear in the background, if you watch this again, all of the original series sound effects blaring in the background, really giving you that powerful feel. If you'll notice, if you listen really carefully on some of the bridge scenes, and it's difficult because Ralph has laid in and I both laid in music to try to cover it. There's some pretty significant noise going on in the background, and that noise is rain. And this is shot up in upstate New York, and when it rains, I'm from LA. When it rains, it doesn't rain that big of a deal. But upstate New York, I'm telling you, it rains. And I've never been on set there, but from what I understand, there's a kind of a tin roof situation going on. And I remember listening to the original track going, what is that noise? What is all that noise? And when I was talking to Pony, who obviously had been there, he was shooting on set, he's like, oh, those are trucks that would go by, or oh no, it was the motorcycle gangs, I guess, that would go by. A bunch of Harley guys are going, that ain't no Harley, that's rain. So the audio team had a really difficult time pulling all that stuff out, but fortunately, most of the bridge scenes have music and strong sound design to cover up that stuff. And here goes our buddy Gil. I was such a fan of him, Buck Rogers. I went out and got my videos out again after I'd finished this. It was great. Tobias Richter again with shots that we've never seen, that Industrial Light and Magic can't even do. I mean, I'm sure they could, but they just never have. And here's another gorgeous Tobias Richter, incredibly complex shot that I resurrected. There was about 19 shots in the original cut that Vic cut, the director, who we will see momentarily, who we are seeing the back of his wigged head at the moment. The 19 Tobias Richter shots that were not in the film, and I was able to, with the help of Alec Peters, who supervised my work and our work in post, resurrect them, and to the benefit and the pleasure of all, because they're just so great. And some people have argued that we don't want to see effect shots for effect shots' sake. They ruin the story, they interrupt the narrative. But you know what? In this case, they're so good, so great. And we were able to bring up the color on them even more and remove some of the noise from the blow-up process. Absolutely great. That slap right there, Kali doesn't actually call out when she's slapped, but Ralph put in that rah, where she screams, and I love that. It was a really great addition. Get it much more realism than, without her screaming. And that was Vic, by the way, our illustrious director. I love this gentleman right here who's just kind of hanging out on the captain's chair. He's just like, oh yeah, it's my chair, and I'll get out when I'm done with my line. Thank you. Again, the beautiful bridge set. Like if you listen in this scene in particular, you can hear some rain, but not on this commentary. This is a shot, if you look closely, this is done with one camera. I believe this was done with the red camera. This is done with a completely different camera. And you'll see Pony Horton's work there on that view screen, that motion view screen, where he had to composite that. He had to unfortunately recomposite it again when we went to 2K because of the blow-up process. A couple of those shots had to be redone. And here is a different camera. There's the camera A. We just saw previously camera B. And hopefully, there's camera B. Hopefully, we did a good job to the viewers of correcting the differences between the color, because every camera has its own visual reference, its own visual look. And I believe they used one of the Sony cameras as a B camera that ended up being used as a camera. So, and then here, you can see Uhura in the background. Now, she's a beautiful actress, and of course she's African American. There's a shot coming up here, and more than once, where the actual exposure was so dark for whatever reason that we couldn't, her skin tone was the color of that panel, black on, almost completely black on black. And one of my magnum opuses as the color corrector was able to pull her skin out and the shot and take away the noise and add the color so it looked like it was exposed like it is right, well, in the previous shot. She looks even better than she does there on the right of frame. Here is more Tobias Richter on the screen. You know, you miss, you know, we get so accustomed to seeing these screens, but with this footage, but every one of these view screens is multiple layers. It's the animation of the view screen, it's the still of the view screen, it's the blue liner on the view screen, and then it's the shrinking of the Tobias Richter images, and sometimes motion correction, sometimes frame correction. There's a lot that goes into those view screen shots, and they're usually 5 to 6 layers deep. They're not just a simple, you know, an overlay. So like this is right here. You can see there's a lot of stuff going on here. You know, the line. Anyway, like I said, very exciting though when you see it in your own timeline. There's a shot that's coming up here, an animation where I was able to actually do one of the things that I do best, which is motion comics. There it is, right there. It kind of zooms in. And what we do in motion comics is we take still images, and there it is. We tracking the target and zooming in as the stars zoom in, and it was kind of a fun effect. In Vic's cut, it was just a static image that just kind of plopped on the screen, which, there's the shot with Uhura. There it was. She'll be coming again in a longer shot, but anyway, so back to the motion comic. I was able to, there she is. I was able to pull out the animation and move it, zoom in on it, so it actually tracks with the stars a lot better. Yeah, I encourage you to go back and freeze frame those Uhura shots. They're just amazing. More Tobias Richter and Ralph Miller work here in the audio realm, where we have explosions and lighting effects, and of course just the whole CG 3D modeling of everything. Some of these shots, like this one, I'm pulling back, actually in the digital realm. One of the reasons we do that is sometimes to hide some of the incredible amount of continuity issues that we had, but also just to give it a little dynamic, dramatic, dynamic action. Just because of shooting schedules and how Vic wanted things to be shot. Oh, another beautiful Enterprise shot. And how things were shot, there was a lot of continuity issues. And what I mean by continuity is, you know, like let's say here's Spock with his arm on the table, and if we were to cut back to him on a wide shot and his arm wasn't on the table, it would seem funny. Or if he'd already all of a sudden jumped out of the chair and stood somewhere else in the room, you'd be like, well, wait a minute, how did he get there? Or here with Cassia, if all of a sudden he didn't have his pewter necklace on there, if something happened, or his hair wasn't quite the same. Pony picking his teeth. That's what we call a continuity issue. And in this film in particular, I'll just say because of how Vic chose to shoot certain things and certain challenges, but the schedule, there was some continuity, significant continuity issues. So we pushed in on shots, and James also suggested other shots and ways of editing it so that we could cut around. And in fact, I'd say about 40% of what we did in the editing process was cut around some of these issues. I think we solved many, if not all of them, for the most part, by doing little push-ins or even flopping the shots. I've got a magnum opus shot coming up with Karg later in the movie, where I literally had to flop him because the line, what we call the line, was broken so badly and on every cut. So anyway, we'll get to that in a second. This is one of my favorite scenes with Pony where he's picking his teeth, which apparently he does personally as an actor. So we cut that scene a little longer just because both Alec and I thought it was so funny and exactly what a Klingon would do. And of course, as sad as it is, this is James Cawley's last performance as Captain Kirk, which is very sad to me. Having worked on World Enough in Time years ago and just really appreciated all the things that he's done for not only Star Trek, but everyone who's worked under him and all of the relationships that have been formed and bonds and even work that's in Hollywood that's been gotten out of it. I mean, I even fell in love on the set of World Enough in Time, so I even got to play George Takei's piano at his house, thanks to James Cawley. Great cliffhanger that we added here, as if there was a commercial. We added that, which otherwise wasn't there, which I thought was a nice little bonus. There, in the original shot, there was an Enterprise in here that we took out, actually. I'm not sure why the Enterprise is in that shot, because they're supposed to be more than 6 parsecs out. But we took that out without any trouble, thanks to the wizardry of After Effects. And here's Pony getting manhandled by James. Some people have commented why this shot is dark, and this shot was specifically darkened, and we made the choice that because they're under red alert, the lighting changed. And when they're about to go, power down, it even gets more dark. And we decided to colorize it in line with how it was lit, so that we were showing that red alert is slightly darker, and that of course no power like this right here is incredibly dark. More beautiful Tobias Richter, stuff we've never seen before. I mean, there's your actors completely in the black, only lit with silhouettes, which I love. Just a backlight. That's all that's there, and the flashing red alert and all those beautiful view screens. Some have said that film is actually real magic because, at least in a theater, you're more in the dark than you are in the light. If you know anything about the old projectors, that the shutter would be actually blocking the light far longer than it was actually projecting the light, and that your brain is actually interpreting the light across that black threshold so that you see no flickering at 24 frames a second. And then, of course, we're never lighting as directors of photography or gaffers. We're never lighting for light. We're lighting for shadows. We're always lighting for shadows. So in a sense, Hollywood is more about darkness than it is about lighting. And so when we talk about lighting, we're really good lighting is all about good shadows. Like there's James in right before he went profile into what we call a Rembrandt lighting. Really beautiful lighting. Oh, there she is again. Just love that shot. Now. And Rembrandt lighting and other lighting is really more about, like I said, shadows. So the magic of Hollywood is sitting in the dark, watching shadows. Of course, here in the digital medium, it's only about shadows because we do have full progressive frames. Gorgeous Tobias Richter shots that I extended to the chagrin of some, but to the joy of many. Originally, we had a different music cue in here. But this still works and just gorgeous. And here's Pony Horton's gorgeous work on this castle with the, I believe it's a D7. More Pony Horton. Set extensions, that pillar that's there on the left doesn't actually exist. And here we're going to really see a lot more of Pony's work. A lot of color correction had to go into this because not only were we color correcting the plate or the actual shot, but we're trying to, integrate Pony's work. Another gorgeous Pony shot here. This is completely CG, with the exception of our actors in the background. As the story goes, apparently, and I haven't met either one of them actually. These are Klingons, but apparently they're engaged, and maybe by the time you're seeing this, maybe they're married. Many have suggested that our actress who plays Kali should be the next Wonder Woman. Which I think could work if she actually lived in LA. This is our director, Vic, who has had much controversy and incited a lot of really what I can imagine is more hits on Facebook page and the Phase 2 page than otherwise would have happened had we not had the controversy. That's a shot that I saved. Here we're in the ready room, or the conference room, with the tri-screen and this fun bit of dialogue with Kirk's nephew, who, when I worked on this episode, I hadn't seen I hadn't actually seen Blood and Fire or any of the prior episodes where his character had been developed. And this is a beautiful development of his character, now understanding that he's actually under Chekhov in the security department. Really well-developed story, character arcs, rather. Again, if you look just in the world of lighting, how important lighting is and how well this was lit. I mean, it was a little underexposed, but they were lighting for what's called highlights, so that nothing ever goes out of the range of what the camera is able to record. But you can see, look at these beautiful shadows, and they're Rembrandt lighting. His, a little triangle on one side of the face, and the other side of the face wholly lit. Chekhov the same way. There's a little shadow there on the wall, which is, a little bit of a, we might want to avoid that, generally speaking, but, given the constraints of the sets, and the positioning of the actors, it's not that big of a deal. And again, here we're back on set of the bridge. I know this is a rain shot. This is a huge rain thing going on there. Out of the turbo lift, more Tobias Richter. You would think that on a CG shot there shouldn't be any noise, but actually what really good CG 3D artists do is they add noise. Because without noise, even in audio, a perfectly clean audio or video segment, your brain thinks is fake, because not only do your ears have innate noise, some people call it tinnitus or tinnitus, but your brain reacts to noise as normal and human and biological. So we leave a little noise in, both in audio, which we cover with what we call background ambiances, and certainly in video. So we never take all the noise out. That starts looking fake and people start looking plasticky. All of these Klingon shots, more gorgeous Tobias Richter stuff, all of these Klingon shots I shifted to the red. Not just because on the bridge of the augment virus, or we'll call them the movie Klingon ridge head Klingons, that not only are not only are those guys all lit in red, but I wanted to keep a continuity. I also added a glow, kind of like the old series, original series glow that you would see during a love scene with Kirk. I thought it was fun to add a little bit of a glow, even here, which was already, clearly lit red, just to give it a little fantasy feel. There was an entire scene here with Vic that we took out that didn't seem to add to the story. When I first got this cut, it was about 20 minutes fat, 20 minutes long. We took 20 minutes, which is a, heartbreaking amount of footage out of this story. And yet there were other parts of the story that needed to get shot that, unfortunately, because of scheduling issues, wasn't shot. So it was a real difficulty for Alec and I to sit down and really, choose which shots should go and what parts should leave. But I think we've had a really, really good balance of keeping the story moving and all kinds of other things. Weapons now. And here's shots that you've never seen and may never see again of the original Enterprise getting demolished by a fleet of D7s and others. Affected birds of prey. You can't imagine the complexity of doing these kinds of shots, not only with video, but listen to all the audio that's going on there. I do a lot of surround mixing in 5.1 surround, 7.1 surround, 11.1 surround. And just even in a stereo mix like this, there's so much stuff that goes into the audio and, of course, the visual. Here you can see the glow. I hit it a little bit harder. Lots of fuzzy glow on our lovely actress and our Klingons. Sorry, guys, it was a shuttlecraft. Ha ha! Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. One of the great things that the writers of this show have done is really captured the original essence of McCoy, Spock, and Kirk, and their interaction. And this film in particular really, I think, highlights some of that. One of my favorite lines is, "What we're going with more ships," which happened a little while ago. Laugh every time I hear that. Oh, there she is. There it is. The beautiful, low lit, recolorized, no noise shot of Uhura, which was her skin was completely black against that. Sorry, I won't harp on it anymore. I'm just really proud of that shot, how we were able to save it. Again, Ralph Miller doing all those Klingon bits, really great work. Tobias killing it with never before seen bridge shots. This shot also had a long bit of dialogue that actually James had us take out wisely between Vic and this actress whose name escapes me. Just, you fool, and then we moved to the warp into the sacred planet. Some of the Phase 2 episodes, use original music. And one of the things that was just so wonderful about this episode is that it's not original music. This is the original music. And one of the instructions that James gave me was that in other episodes, very few episodes have used anything from season 2 of the score. And I was able to cut in quite a few cues that have never been heard in this series, really to the benefit of the show. And while I was doing it, going through, exhaustively all of the music, which is just so wonderful, I'd forgotten how great it was. I noticed a couple things. One is that the only time violins, violas were ever used as strings, and sometimes even strings in general, were ever used in the scoring of the original series was during love scenes. About 70% or more of these episodes never used stringed instruments at all. It was all woodwinds, percussion, and brass. I find that fascinating to me as a composer. And then the second thing I noticed was that my old conductor and composition film composing teacher, Gerald Freed, is in so many of these cues. I had forgotten that he had scored so much of Star Trek, the original series. And, he did Hawaii Five-0 and Chips and so many of these shows. And just to hear his voice, if you listen to the big, the big CD soundtrack, they have excerpts of him talking to the orchestra. And I had a really, he's been gone now, unfortunately. But just a beautiful, emotional moment listening to my old teacher talk to the orchestra. And it was just a little anecdote there for you, how great the composers and the musicians were who worked on the original series, and how wonderful it is to have their work reflected in this episode. Yes, Kirk, it's a katana. As a martial artist myself, I love that we're going down to the planet with blunt force weapons. I think that's great. Good writing. From here on, you're going to find me getting a little more picky and showing you a little more things that will spoil perhaps your enjoyment of this episode, things that were issues, because from here on there were a lot more issues to be dealt with, and some story things that we've had to deal with and cut around, none of the least of which is if you look at the entrance to the transporter room, you'll see that is not a hallway. If you go back, there's basically a wall that hits. There's no hallway there, and when the doors open, you'll see that wall is very, very close to the doorway. And up there in upstate New York, they've maximized to an incredible degree the space that they have on there to build these beautiful sets. But in some places, they've had to scrimp a little bit. And that's one of the other places. One of those moments where we happily overlook because of all the other great things that are going on. Great acting with Pony and James. I worked almost daily with Pony and on all these shots, and Pony by far and away has far more effect shots than anybody else in this film. I mean, we the shots that we see with Tobias, of course, are so beautiful and so great, but they're meant to be noticed. But Pony's shots, as you'll see, and I'll point them out as best I can, they're not meant to be noticed. They're meant to feel like that's how it was shot in the lens, in the camera. And this is Tobias' work. And again, Ralph Miller doing great audio here. Tobias' work, Pony's work is it's unsung, but some of the most important work that we have in this film. The transporter shots, again, and so many other great things, which, I'll try to point out. You'll notice here the red shift. Here we are on anything Klingon is now getting shifted to the red and pushed into a little bit of a glow. And again, great work by Ralph, synchronizing that huge gate sound effect, which he put in. That wasn't on set at all. And if you notice in the background, there's all those people. There's a lot of folks there, but there really isn't a lot of folks there. That's a composite of a bunch of different people being composited and thrown into the back. Maximizing the amount of people that you're there by duplicating them and putting them in other wardrobe. Again, Pony Horton. This is Pony's work. All those cauldrons on the top. You probably didn't even notice, but because it looks so good. But the flames in the background, the castle, all that stuff, and he tracked it with a moving shot. So all those things have to move in at the same speed, the same zoom, the same pan, tilt, truck as the actual original shot. And that's, again, done by many different software algorithms. And not something that's, kids, don't try this at home. Only let a professional do this. Again, redshift. This beautiful call to honor. I mean, one of the great things, so many great things about this episode, we really get into the heart and mind of Klingon culture. Not only the ridgehead culture, like Vic there looks, but also the human hybrid Klingon, human Klingon hybrids, and how they work together and how they do work together, and the disdain between them, and how, what honor is like, and why honor works here but it doesn't work here, and what is honorable. As we'll find Karg betraying them, but that's honorable because he has his context is honor to support this rather than just what human honor would look like. Really a great, to me, expose on what honor can be in our culture, how honor can be misused, and the best part about it being that it's just never hit over the head. It's just very soft and given to the audience. It's a part of the story, it's a part of Star Trek, which is what Roddenberry had in mind for Star Trek in general. Getting powerful ideals and axioms across, changing the culture with sci-fi. And here is Karg, just one of our favorite actors. He's just so great. Been in I don't know how many of these episodes, maybe in every one. Well, no, it can't be every one, but he's been in so many. And it was an honor to be able to cut him and work with his performances in post. Again, you'll see the glow we worked with on his bandolier or badge or I can't remember what we call those things. Tobias Richter with a shot that no one has ever seen before. The Enterprise in a fleet of Klingon ships not being antagonized against a planet absolutely beautiful with the sunburst. There it is. And you'll notice how the glow works here with the the name of that knife escapes me, but that Klingon blade, as he turns it, which was, good work on the part of the director of photography to angle the camera and the knife in such a way that it glints as he moves it. You'll see it here in a minute. It was doing it earlier. So we just accented it with a little glow. There it is, a little glinting. Oh, beautiful glinting. Good work on the part of the DP. Again, this was pre-lit to be red, and I just pushed it a little bit more. And too bad, buddy. You didn't get head ridges. You just got a wardrobe change. I love this interaction here where they're like, if anything happens to this ship, you're fired. As I should be. Again, one of these beautiful set creations. And there's that wall you see behind the doors to the transporter room. Again, we happily overlook it because the story is so good and we love our characters, and the lighting here is excellent. Just little nitpicky things. If you look really carefully, again, because we did this and blew it up to 2K, resolution, and then did a denoise pass, really soon you're going to start seeing pretty significant wardrobe and set, holes in the wall, things on the floor, wardrobe issues, huge makeup issues that at 720p with the noise left in, nobody really notices. But when we do a real good color correction pass, take out the noise, all of a sudden it becomes very, very noticeable. This entire shot here with these two Klingons walking away, tracked by Pony Horton. He did praxis in the top, we'll see in a moment, those flames. You've got, I don't think it's a D7 that's going to Batman this Batman practice. I think it's something else. But here's the beam in, all Pony Horton, beautifully done. And as Pony will happily tell you, that is Alka-Seltzer in water, with a few other things. And Pony actually worked with the guy who developed that for the original series, and he's not ashamed to tell you. And again, more Pony Horton work. That emblem that's on top of that staircase cement little structure, that's been tracked as well to get rid of some issues and make it clean. So again, Pony Horton's work, not noticeable because it's so good. This is the beginning of what I call breaking the line. Now, you see Karg's looking frame left, and Kirk's looking frame right, as they should, right? The one's looking one way, the other's looking the other way. I'm telling you that Kirk was shot so that he was also looking left. So they both were looking frame left. It's called breaking the line. Now, what I had to do is take Kirk and do what's called flop him, so that he's looking right. Now, if any of you speak Klingon, when he moves, you'll notice the Klingon on the back wall is backwards because the shot is backwards. I couldn't flop Karg's shot because you've got these actors here in the shot, and it would all of a sudden, Chekhov would be on frame right when we cut to him. All of a sudden, Chekhov there, he'd be on frame right, and his emblems would be reversed. So I made the choice to flop Kirk, and it was certainly the right choice. No one has noticed anything. And it feels natural. But this is, again, I will say from the constraints and the difficulty of the schedule and what Vic chose to do. And it was, something that we just fixed and had to fix to make it the best that it could be. And fortunately, it all worked out. There's another shot at our scene with Spock and Karg where it didn't work out, and I had to actually do some significant compositing to fix the broken line. And I'll show you that shot when it comes up, so you can see what had to be done. It's unnoticeable otherwise. You see the Klingon, you can just see it now. It's backwards. For those of you who read Klingon, this is a great scene between these two. Just love it. Love their interaction. Now, that torch was an afterthought by Pony to hit the music that I wrote, actually. We poured over the music that was available in the original series, and we just really needed something that had a much more earthy bass beat. And so we've got this music in there, which I wrote. And Pony was kind enough to add that torch, so it really changed how the feel of it was. There you saw Krug, the Klingon. He's in that shot too, that's wide, but you saw him earlier. Krug, as I recall, is the wardrobe person, and I could be wrong about that, but certainly he's worth noticing. He had an extended scene in here that we cut because it didn't forward the story. This shot right here, this extreme close-up, it was lit in a way where Kirk was completely in shadow, and that was the only cut of it that we could use, where he happened to hit a mark with eye light. It was almost completely black. We had to pull up all of the lighting we could, did a draconian noise correction pass, and you can see some of the noise correction artifact. There's Krug, there he is, look at it, perfect, looks just like Christopher Lloyd. We had to do a draconian noise pass on that, so you can see the faces look a little plasticky, but it was the only way to save that shot, and we had to really, that whole bar scene, because again, how Vic shot it, really had some continuity, massive continuity storytelling issues, and Alec and I were able to cut around and really make that scene work. Unfortunately, having to cut some of the actors' performances to make it work. And by the way, when I say Alec, I'm talking about producer Alec Peters, who is the gentleman who brought me in and introduced me to James. Although I'd worked on World Enough in Time, James didn't know me. And so I was able to, with the help and the trust of Alec Peters, who is a producer for Star Trek Axanar, be involved and do oversee and edit and do all the post-production process. So Alec actually came in and we worked on the edit together in the grosser points, and then he did a lot of the finalization and just checking it all out. Here's Pony Horton again. This is one of the last shots to go into the movie, and this is one of the first ones to go in. Sometimes we do shots that aren't in chronological order just for the ease of workflow and things like that. So it's a little bit of trivia. Such a beautiful transporter room. Makeup. I love this shot. Oh yes, she's got batleth ears now. Really interesting way of setting that shot up. And if you look here, you can see the nose on Vic. You can see, again, because we're so close, so at 2K, noise passed, you can see that his nose prosthetic isn't quite matching his nose, and you can actually see his real nose there. This shot, again, was a large continuity issue because of how it was photographed, the geometry of the camera. And we did a lot of push-ins and experimented with a lot of things to make this work, but I think it works flawlessly. Again, this is dark, and we had to do a lot of noise correction. But I think, again, it's come out very well, and the performances here between Zahn and Kitumba are great. This cut that's about to come up, very difficult, because the guys about to walk in the door they did it differently every time. And if you know anything about continuity, that basically means you only have one take. So here's the first time that Kirk walked in, and Kitumba moves there, and Cassia moves to the left. The other times, maybe Cassia walked in, or Kitumba moved late, or moved early. So it really took us a while to do the editing, the puzzle piece, to get the various cuts to work together. And fortunately, there was only one iteration where this would work. Only one of all the coverage that was shot. We went through everything and tried just about every mathematical possibility to try to get this to work, and there was only one that worked. So fortunately, we had it, and works flawlessly. This, of course, is an important part of the story where the treachery of the Klingons is revealed, that they're using the Earthers, and that this has all been a very clever plot to, what we'll find out later, establish what Kitumba and Cassia have up their sleeve and get rid of Malkthon and his minions. Pony Horton again. A hugely difficult shot for Pony because you have actors moving before the transporter is completed, so you can see that shot had to be done very, very quickly, much faster than normal. And it's one of the reasons why Pony insists that he's on set whenever he has to do these, so that he can actually help people understand what's required. Because, you think about a transporter shot. Oh, you just overlay some CG and you're done. Well, no, 1,000 times no. You have to coach the actors as to when they can move, what spacing, and the director of photography as to how he can shoot them. It's not simple in any way. And Pony did a great job of fixing a difficult cinematographic situation. I just made that up, cinematographic. This is an extension of this shot that we created to really show Kirk getting captured, which wasn't there, in the original Vic cut. Having this guy come up and grab, and then we were able to make this transition work so much better, that it wasn't just an outside situation, that Kirk was also being grabbed, because otherwise we never saw Kirk getting grabbed. Beautiful Pony Horton work here. This is an insane, awesome set extension. This doesn't exist. There we have them existing. And again, the pillars on the left and the window on the right doesn't exist. That's all Pony, and you wouldn't notice it otherwise. A little something you might find interesting, that if you watch that shot as it pans, you'll notice that we had one little issue with Kirk being frozen there. But no one said anything about it yet, but I'll point it out to you just because it's fun. And You notice the weapons on the wall. Again, pillar on the left. That's pony. That doesn't exist. That's all a red sheet with weapons hung on it. That's what's really there. Again, pillar. So you'll be seeing, I'm pointing these out because you won't notice them otherwise. Pony's incredible work, tireless work. Now all of that is set. And you'll notice some familiarity of that Klingon piece that's sitting there from when those two Klingon, when they beamed in. Again, story-wise, I love this, where we're showing the difference between imperialism and, well, I'll say capitalism, although some will disagree with me. You know, the beauty of explaining the Klingon system at this point in their history is that, you know, we've never really had it explained, except in books that are outside of canon. And although some would argue that Star Trek Phase 2 is outside of canon, some would also argue that CBS's stand that if it's on screen, it's canon, and since CBS sanctions this as okay, you could say that this is canon. Ha 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 ha. Downsayers, naysayers. What else about this scene? There was something else about this scene that was so difficult. Oh, it was the colorization. So again, a very dark scene. And here's Kali completely overexposed, and we had to try to bring out, without the red raw files, bring out definition in her forehead ridges, which just wasn't there at all. My girlfriend pointed out in this scene, she goes, "Oh, there's weapons on the wall. Why don't they grab them?" Well, yes. Yes, oh well. That's what you get, gentlemen, for dating a woman who is a script supervisor Nazi. She's a wonderful woman, but sees everything, and so it helps me when I edit. But I couldn't fix this because there was never a take where they turned around and grabbed the weapons that are there on the wall. Oh well. Story still works though, and it's still fun. And again, no one said anything about it yet but her, so there. More great stuff from James and Kitumba. This is another difficult scene. It was lit very well, but exposed very darkly. And again, they're all in black. And if you know anything about black on video, even on a red camera, you know, it's very difficult to get definition and distinction from black in video. So it kind of falls to us in post-production and color correction to try to give definition where there is no definition. Tobias Richter, ladies and gentlemen. A moment of silence. And we're back to red shift and glowing. Unfortunately, this Klingon pre-reacts to the punch. And as someone who used to do stunts, that's actually how I got involved in production, was doing stunts, sword work. That was unfortunately a faux pas. Now here comes the scene where I had to flop the shot because they broke the line and it didn't work, and I had to composite a whole new background. Now you'll notice here he's in the center. They're looking left. He's looking center. That's okay. They're looking left. But it was shot so that he looks left as well. And it doesn't work. He has to look right if he's going to be profiled 3/4 like this. See, this is all fine. He's in the center. It's okay. Nicely done. But when we get to his medium shot, he looks left as well. That's it. You see the beams of light that are on the right? I created those to mask the fact. See how it's behind him there? To mask the fact that I flopped the shot. I flopped the shot, and the topography, the geometry of the back wall was wrong, and you could see it. It was backwards. So I had to flop. See, here he's okay because he's moving, and then we hide it. See, he's still looking left, but we couldn't. I just couldn't fix this. There he's looking left. Everybody's looking left. You can't do that in film. So I flopped the shot and then cut him out, put in beams so it looks like the light, and then left the background the same to cover up where he was, which is really difficult because if you watch that shot, he moves his sword and we had to cut around that. This shot, you'll realize another big makeup issue you'll see, especially on Kitumba, on Malkthon's nose. You can even see it from here. You can see where his nose is there and how the hair moves up. You can see it on her too, right under her left eye, where that makeup meets her nose, especially in the 1080 version. Again, it's just, you know, on 720, it looks fine. Here, it really, you can see that, see all that stuff, and same with her. But the acting is good, and the scene has the right pacing. And Anyway, just little fun things. It doesn't really affect it, and no one said anything about it yet, so I'm just pointing it out. Again, Pony Horton, ladies and gentlemen, on the left with his torches and pillars and all of this stuff. There's a shot coming up here later with Malkthon. It's another magnum opus of mine where he walks in and is completely in shadow. Actually, that was another one with Kitumba where he rushes in. He's in shadow. He's in overexposed light, and we composited his head a little differently. But with Malkthon, I'll point it out to you. He's completely in shadow, and we brought him up and his head, took the noise out. It looked like sand. It looked like he was walking through sand. And it's just absolutely flawless, beautifully done now. And story-wise, again, we're in this mode where, you know, Kitumba's life is forfeit, and now we're gonna do a little bait and switch on the Klingons. Spock, green blood becomes pink, which is great. Of course, the only story flaw with this, generally speaking, is that if he's going to modulate his voice, since they're all going to be speaking Klingon and they're all going through the universal translator, of course, the problem being that how would he, unless he speaks Klingon, which we're not aware anywhere that Spock can. That's a little story plot flaw then. But again, it doesn't involve the story, and my girlfriend didn't figure that one out. So she didn't figure it out. I didn't reckon anyone else did. But, you know, when you're an editor and the post-production supervisor and the color correctionist and a few other things, when you've seen these scenes 1,000 times, no kidding, you pick things out. And here comes this scene with Malkthon where he's about to walk forward. He's okay here. We, you know, color correct a little bit. He's okay. But when he walks forward to stab Spock, you'll see him go into a slight shadow, but it was a almost black, darkened room shadow. And we were able to pull it up with the magic of software. Here he comes. So he's going to walk. Here comes the shadow. You see it on him right there. He's in complete dead black shadow. And we were able to fix it and light him. Again, if you can go back and see the beautiful Pony Horton work on that, the set extension there as he was approaching Spock. Just really wonderful. One of the last shots to go in again before we went to final. Now, personally, I was sorry that Kirk didn't do the double fist, you know, finger enlaced back of the neck thing that we love, but oh well. Pony Horton again, one of the last transporter shots to go in, and Tobias Richter. I wish I could impart to you the beauty of this on 2K on the 30-foot screen that we have at the studio. I mean, it is just, it looks like they spent $50 million on it. I mean, just really, really beautiful. Back on the bridge, I don't think this is a rain shot. I don't think there was rain here. I think the audio is clean. We had to recut this scene. There was a shot where we see them, well, actually, I know what it was. We took out the scene where they actually beam onto the Enterprise from the Kitumba's chambers. You know, there's a scene where they beamed on, and you know, Spock comes in and, you know, take care of him, Bones, and you know, it was a nice little scene. It just slowed everything down, and we can get into this intensity and this action story moving much quicker by taking it out. So it's always painful to take out, heartbreaking, in fact, to take out, you know, scenes that were really well done and well acted, well shot. But, you know, the story. Alfred Hitchcock says you need 3 things to make a good movie: the script, and the script. So, and by that he meant the story. This is another thing where that guy right there, that shot is run backwards. Originally he looks up, but both Alec and I were like, how funny would it be if they'd all been watching, and then he kind of goes, oh, this is bad, and then he looks down. So if you watch carefully, I mean, you have to see it really carefully, you'll see that that's going backwards. Tricks that we make and do in Hollywood. There he is, unpregnable, indestructible, immovable, Spock. Again, there was some dialogue here with James that we took out to move forward to the fleet and all this beautiful work here. That originally I had that as outside the vessel, but it was smarter at James' request to have it back as on the screen so that we can go to the Super Command Carrier here. Or the Dark Destroyer, I think is what we called it. All of those little view screens on the Klingon vessel, by the way, are all Tobias Richter again. And because of how his output was significantly different from Pony's output in terms of the algorithms that they used, color correcting and denoising, basically each shot between Pony and Tobias was a different kind of correction. Just because I guess they use different software, or certainly different hardware, not to mention the fact they're 4,000 miles away from each other. No, 4,000. No, 10,000 miles. Or 6, I don't know. I'm not good with geography. I'm a post-production supervisor. Don't ask me where Zimbabwe is. Oh, I suppose you could ask me where Germany is, but just don't ask me how far away it is. Again, we shifted all these shots with Karg to red so that it matched, and we had this similar Klingon feeling. Before they were just white, much like the bridge here, and it felt very Federation-y to me. So we added the red to all the Kargs and all the Klingon shots so they had a uniformity, which I think really, really helped. Beautiful shots that you will never see anywhere else of the Klingon fleet in disarray, navigational disarray. Now this fight scene that's coming up, when we first got it, I think Vic had his original cut. I think he was just absolutely in love with his fight scene, but unfortunately it just wasn't that good. And I, you know, as a former action stunt guy, it was really not well done. And we cut it to ribbons. There's probably 5 minutes, I'm not kidding you, 5 minutes of that fight on the cutting room floor, as it were. But we cut around it and made it so that, just because there were hits that didn't work, there was stuff that just, you know, reactions that were just not good. And so we kept it to a minimum. We cut in all the best stuff, cut around things, and of course here's Ralph Miller adding beautiful metallic clinks to things that were made out of wood and plastic. And different sound effects, of course, for the Klingon transporters. And again, Pony did a great job with a horizontally moving Klingon transporter. But this is as long as we dared cut this scene. By the way, that Klingon insignia says, "Please stand by." In case, again, for those of you who don't read Klingon. And this guy, this was fun to do this with Chekhov and have his little... We had recut this a little bit differently, but James insisted, and we loved we loved his edit to it, what he asked us to do between Chekhov and that gentleman. And for those of you, there's something specific and wonderful about that whip that Pony's holding, and I forget what it was. He had it specially designed from something. All of you should email him on the site and go, "What's with the whip? Tell us about the whip." And of course, here is the great rivalry, not only on screen but off screen, between James Cawley and Vic Mignogna, which is all I will say about that. Unfortunately, all it takes to get Vic down is a roll to the ground. Here comes Kitumba. Again, Pony Horton with the wonderful transporter effects. And, you know, in the inimitable Roddenberry fashion, we have the denouement of the story with a Klingon boy giving us the true honor of the Klingon Empire. And, you know, the real essence of what it is we're trying to say, which is, you know, honor is okay and important, but it can be used for your own purposes and treachery, and still be honorable. So, and the Klingons are the perfect race to show us that honor can be so easily misused. And, you know, Roddenberry's idea of clinging on to the old ways, or the ways of the some would suggest even the non-Masonic ways of the United States from the 60s, again, really brought up beautifully here in this story by the writers. All of the phaser, the disruptor and effects are all Pony Horton. Just gorgeous how it moves from the flesh to the skulls, and of course Vic, in a whimsical style, got the longest, most torturous disruption. And all these poor gentlemen, you can just see, and again, Ralph putting in all this, the fuzz and the flesh ripping noises. Just imagine the smell, folks. Imagine what that would smell like. 3 disintegrated, atomized bodies. I'm waiting for a Star Trek episode where people are like, ugh, gross. No wonder we use phasers. Disruptors just smell so bad. Sorry, sort of funny to me. This scene, just again, a lot of the color correction issues. Again, just in this respect of being too dark. It's okay to have a dark scene, just not having it too dark. And adding noise correction, shifting it. There's the glow on Karg's bandolier there. You can see it a little bit on Kitumba's shirt as well. And the last moments of Vic Mignogna. There's a shot that's coming up where where Kitumba turns and walks away, and that shot is radically different. And in fact, I think that showed up as an MP4 in the final result, and I had to retranscode it. It was completely dark, very lacking a lot of color, and we couldn't quite get it to look like the rest of the shots. And I'll point it out to you. You'll see it. It's not hard to miss. See which one. Oh yeah, they're still going on here. I think you'll notice a lot of arm crossing in this episode too, which is typically bad directing. You know, arm crossing, you know, non-verbally is always, I'm protecting myself, I don't want to talk to you, that kind of thing, non-verbally, in any culture in the world. So, you know, with an actor, unless you know that, when you arm cross, unfortunately, it means that I don't know what to do with my hands, and a director hasn't told me what to do with them. Here, this is the shot right here. You can see it's very, very different than the rest of them. There goes our illustrious director. So now we're going to go back to Tobias, another shot that we've never seen before. Beautiful. Back on the bridge, I'm pretty sure this is a rain shot where it was pouring rain during this, as I recall. And again, on the view screen, you can notice even more the glow and the nice push to red. You know, if you have the ability to watch this episode on a big screen and watch it from YouTube or wherever at 1080p, I strongly recommend you do it. Even the YouTube compression doesn't pull out or you know, make the noise correction any less amazing, or the color or how it was shot. It's just really, really nice. Although I fought to get the little silly quirky end of Star Trek the original series music clip that shows up in so many of these out, you know, it does end up here, unfortunately, in the mix. Right after McCoy talks about the 100 years, of course, though he's not going to be around. The joke being that, of course, he is around in 100 years in the first episode of TNG at Farpoint. Right here. Here comes the music cue, which I tried to get out because everybody uses it, but I think Ralph actually did a great job of mixing it in, so it seems great. And here's me pulling back on the shot digitally so that we can emphasize this is James Cawley's last episode. Thank you, James, for it all. And notice there the camera shake that Tobias put in, like a wave of something. How awesome is that? This is the camera shake. This being the, of course, the trailer for the next episode, Holiest Thing. And it's actually a really good indicator to show you the difference between director photographies, color correction. You can see it's very, very different looking. Obviously, it hasn't been blown up to 2K, but and it's an early cut trailer. But you see how different the lighting is. How the shadows are a little brighter. The shadows are, in fact, there's not a lot of them, and what there are of them are very light. So it gives it a little more of a flat feel. And you know, sometimes that's a good choice. You can also tell the audio hasn't been fixed up yet. They're still working on that. So I'm pointing this out so you can see the difference that Ralph did. The incredible amount of work that goes into. See how white that looks, the bridge, as opposed to a color-corrected version. I'm not sure who did this work. It's good work here for the CG and the... Well, I won't spoil you who that vessel is. What an honor and a privilege to have been working on this entire post-production process with Kitumba. It was a dream for me and my team. And to be able to work with Alec and James and Robert and Pony and Tobias and Darren and the entire post team, just wonderful people. And if you get a chance to work with them, you will see what I mean. Just the hundreds and hundreds of people that deserve credit on this, here they are. And what a wonderful thing that Phase 2 has done. And I hope that they keep doing these for years and years and years to come. And eventually CBS finally wakes up and sees that there is a huge following for this kind of thing, and then turns it into webisode series or something even better. Thanks for listening this far. You're a true trooper. And this is Mark Edward Lewis, your Kitumba post-production supervisor, editor, color corrector, saying thank you and signing off.